Winston Marshall has made one of the best videos about, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but basically diving into some of the history of woke coming from or destroying the left. And, he was canceled from Mumford and Sons for just posting that he liked a book. And the craziness of the mob of the left. Just really, really good breakdown and good conversation between him and Bill Maher. Highly recommend his channel, but I think this is probably his best video yet.
I just sat down with Bill Maher, who I can confirm is a lovely bloke. We met at his home in Los Angeles and taped an episode of his show, Club Random, where we discussed Elon Musk, the sticky issue of Islam in Britain, wokeism versus liberalism, his cancellation in 2001, mine 20 years later, the backlash against political correctness, and perhaps most juicy of all, his recent meeting with President Trump. But before we get into all of that, me and Bill have some history. When I left my band back in 2021, Bill made a real-time monologue about it.
Yes, we do have our own Red Guard here, but they do their rampaging on Twitter. Here's a cute example from a couple of years ago. The banjo player from Mumford and Sons tweeted that he liked a book that apparently had not been approved by the revolution. So, of course, he had to delete the tweet, then take time away from the band. Oh, my God, you mean this could have affected Mumford and Sons? And then the cringing apology, I have come to better understand the pain caused by the book I endorsed. Pain? From a book? Unless he hit the drummer over the head with it. What happened to I can read whatever the fuck I want? Don't worry, I'm a musician. It won't happen again.
Now, though Club Random was the first time we met in person, I should say that after his monologue back then, he sent me a nice message apologizing that he might not have got the whole story. What he had missed out was that I eventually retracted the apology and left the band. We talked about my experience, but far more interesting was his experience getting cancelled back in 2001. Bill might be the OG cancellee. Here's the famous clip that got him in trouble.
On Politically Incorrect, the show that once followed this one, he made this infamous comment less than a week after 9/11.
We have been the cowards, lobbing cruise missiles from 2,000 miles away. That's cowardly.
That is a
Staying in the airplane
yes.
when it hits the building.
Say
what you want about it, not cowardly.
How does he feel about it now?
Ironically, Bill Maher, one of the things he gets really mad about and rants about every, I don't know, a couple times a year at least, is the I think he calls them truthers for 9/11, which is so out of date. I don't want to talk too much about it and get the channel banned, but basically, all you need to do is watch the documentary on the chemical composition of all of the ash from 9/11 and how that was all confiscated and what it contains and what it means. And then that'll lead you down the path to what happened. And this is the truth that all of the families, victims had to face. And they went all the way to, I don't know if the Supreme Court or just below the Supreme Court, and were basically told they weren't going to get any information due to national security. So just horrible, horrible situation. But it's one of the things that I feel like he's totally out of date on, kind of off topic.
Let me think. I mean, it's a great question. I'm glad you're asking me because I haven't thought about it in such a long time. I mean, it is 24 years ago. Wow. Jesus Christ, time goes fast.
So how did the cancellation affect you emotionally, like back in 2001?
I mean, it was the same, probably the same thing I was just talking about with you. When the bright, hot light turns on you, it's not a good feeling. I mean, it's not a warm, bathed in a warm glow kind of light. It's like a interrogation lamp light times a terrible tanning bed, and you just feel singed.
Discussing my experiences from 2021 brought us to an issue on which we share much agreement: woke.
Once you start something, you get a certain amount of cult followers for anything, and then the true believers never die. I mean, a lot of people would say right now, the Democratic Party is still in that mode, which is going to render them possibly an irrelevant party if they don't change.
What would you like to see from the Democrats, like, going forward?
Much more centrism, much more get rid of the woke baggage, you know. Old school liberal is what I usually describe myself as. But that's very often the opposite of woke. Woke would like people to believe that they're some sort of an extension of liberalism, but they're not. They're usually something that's quite opposite. Liberalism was, we should have a colorblind society and not see race at all. That's not what the woke believe.
Yeah, I would say it's
They're the opposite.
quite.
Let's put race at the front of everything.
Yep, absolutely. Oppressor and oppressed, sacred, make a sacred the oppressed.
Woke is not liberal. I would say it is extreme progressivism. It might be described as a neo-Marxist ideology where economic classes are swapped out for groups based on identity, and those groups then being deemed sacred. Writing long before the ideology of woke even had a name, the English philosopher Bertrand Russell wrote in 1937 of the, quote, superior virtue of the oppressed. Specifically, this was a sentiment held by people regarding oppressed people they themselves were not a part of. After the war, this was turbocharged into intersectionality. Ultimately, everyone was a minority except straight white men. Well, except the minority of Jews, who the woke deem as the greatest oppressors of all. Elon Musk expressed his agreement with Bill on X, but I wonder if he saw Bill's rant against him in the same conversation.
I'm a free speech guy up and down the line, but I didn't think that the head guy would be like retweeting the worst of the tweets. That's crazy. Like, yes, the Supreme Court said Nazis could march in Skokie, Illinois, a town full of Holocaust survivors. I mean, that's the bar that we have in this country for how much we love free speech. Okay, so are there going to be some Nazis if you really have a free speech channel? Yes, there are. But you don't have to retweet them.
Was he retweeting Nazis?
Well, I mean, you know what? I don't read it closely, but I'm getting this from what other people say, and
I push back.
And obviously, Musk is the ultimate troll, and I don't think Bill Maher understands that. That's the majority of his marketing strategy.
Back on this because I hadn't seen Elon actually reposting literal Nazis. Since the episode, I have looked into this, and the closest evidence I could find to support Bill's opinion is a story in the New York Times where the headline was Elon Musk shared, then removed a post absolving dictators for genocide. And here is that post. Stalin, Mao, and Hitler didn't murder millions of people. Their public sector workers did. I think in the context of how critical Musk has been about Stalin and how supportive he has been of Jews generally, it's a bit of a stretch to think he's supporting Nazis with this statement, wrong as it is. Now, before we get into my reaction to our conversation and what Bill revealed about his meeting with Trump, let us see what the media said about his meeting with Trump. Left-leaning Hollywood Life ran the headline, Is Bill Maher conservative? Find out if he's Democrat or Republican after Trump visit. Now let's use ground news to see how the rest of the media is covering Bill Maher's visit to the White House. We specifically asked ground news to partner with us because their app and website allow me and my team to quickly cut through media bias and get the full picture on any story in the news cycle. There are
Yeah, these websites that are showing left, right, and center are great if you guys haven't tried them out.
religion, it's a different thing. And religion is just an opinion, and it's about ideas, and ideas matter. And when the idea is that A, women are second-class citizens to begin with, and please don't even pretend to tell me that that's not a pervasive feeling throughout the Islamic
It's
world.
explicit in the Quran.
Women are not equal like they are in the West. Shut the fuck up. And two,
Yeah, and this recent rally the last couple of weeks, one of the main, well, I don't even know what he's called, one of the main leaders here in the U.S. said women were less than dogs and needed to be treated as such. And why aren't all these people being deported, or arrested, or both? It's just insane.
this thing about not Islamic, like if you're not part of Islam, are you really a human being? You know, it's not like there aren't Christians who are like super, but Christianity, I'm sorry, is different. It's more that, you know, hate the sinner, hate the sin, love the sinner, and like will convert you. And Islam is more like, no, this is the way it is. This is the superior religion. You either get that or you don't. I hope you get it, because if you don't, I have no sympathy for you. You're not really part of what we're doing here on Earth.
Yeah.
And that's not a good attitude. Ideas do matter. especially in this.
Bill asked me about Islam in Britain.
So there was a Henry Jackson Society did a report last year,
Who?
and they're a
Who?
think tank, Henry
Oh.
Jackson Society.
Henry Jackson Society?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And they did a survey of British Muslims. 3/4 of British Muslims do not believe that Hamas committed murder or rape on October 7th. The majority of British Muslims think Jews have too much power.
So does my agent.
A third of a third of British Muslims want Sharia law, and so the real
Sharia law, that's a problem.
that's a problem, and so we've got a real problem with this these two groups mixing.
This is the difference between your country and mine. In my country, Muslims have assimilated well. You know, I don't think a third of American Muslims want Sharia law.
I think that might be a little ignorant. I think it depends on where you live in the world. California is probably a little more on the chill side of things.
They may have heard the word and maybe don't even know, and they would just reflexively, because this is the kind of bullshit I get for speaking honestly about this issue, they might reflexively go, yeah, Sharia law, but trust me, you want to live the American life that you're living. All these Americans who defend the, yeah, you would not want to live the life that you are supposedly defending. You like it here for good reason. That's why you or your parents or their grandparents came here, because you wanted to get away from that bullshit. And Sharia law, yeah, you're not going to want to live where homosexuality is illegal, sometimes punishable by death. You're not going to be able to wear that bikini. I know that. And you're not going to have another religion or even be able to consider it. That would be blasphemy. And adultery, yeah, that's a capital punishment. You know, it's like, come on.
Every week now in Britain, there is at least one major Islamism story. Last week, lawyers filed a legal case challenging the designation of Hamas as a terrorist organization in the UK.
We are instructed by Hamas. We are today at the Home Office, and we are going to hand in an application under Section 4 of the Terrorism Act to have them removed from the list of prescribed organizations.
Regarding Sharia law, Britain has become the Western capital for Sharia law, as we now have 85 courts. Bill also wanted to understand the Pakistani rape gang scandal.
But your country, I mean, has these kind of issues that my country just does not deal with. I mean, the one about the raping of children, I mean, like gangs who preyed on young girls, girls always from like unfortunate homes where they needed a role model, they needed a father, they needed money. And these were all like Pakistani or Indian guys, and they would, and this is like in the Midlands, the middle of
It's
England.
actually up and down the country. So it's over 50 cities, all the way from Edinburgh down to the southern part of England, to Oxford, and a lot of it in Manchester area and Birmingham area. And over the last few decades, tens of thousands of girls have been brutally treated by what are majority Pakistani heritage rape gangs. The girls are, most of them are, I wouldn't even say working class white girls, underclass.
And if this is the first time you've been hearing this stuff, guys, I've covered this on some of my other videos. England is a very sad, messed up place right now. You can get arrested for your posts online. You know, they should have a travel ban there until they get back to some sort of normal.
In the way they're treated by society.
Vulnerable.
Vulnerable. And white girls, and a lot of them treated this way and because they're kafir, because they're not Muslim. And it's also affected Hindu communities as well. And it's playing out even yesterday I woke up to the news that the Labour government are not going to do a full inquiry into it. And it's, for some reason, unbelievably
And this
contentious.
went on for like
I'd actually
20,
say it's even
20
worse,
years, right?
because some of the girls have been brutally murdered, right? And at least five or six of them have been brutally murdered. There's one girl I think her name was Charlene Downs. I think that was her name, and she was in the court case of the prosecution of her murderers. There was a audio recording played of the murderer laughing about cutting her up and putting her in the kebab meat. And horrific as all of that is, the way in which the establishment, Conservative and Labour, have everyone, the sort of Westminster Uniparty, and have completely, and the media classes, they've all sort of been complicit in this, what I say is a cover-up of what's been going on.
I don't know why in the Western world unless it is some extreme circumstances, children disappearing and etc. is not covered. I don't know why. There's been some media thing about a guy, a middle-aged guy who was, I'm assuming it was because of his race. I'm not even going to talk about his race, but assuming from his circumstances or whatever, it's been in the news constantly. But a child who disappears, it's unless it's, the family has money and puts up a reward and the media decides that it's a national story and it's not talked about and it's super super sad.
Will told me about the last time he visited London.
It was in a neighborhood that I was I guess, East London, maybe it was, whatever it was. So I had my security person plus 2 Israeli bodyguards. Okay, so we go to this neighborhood and we're walking around looking for this restaurant. There was some hard looks on the street. That was all I'm going to say, from people. I mean, it was seemed to be, shall we say, West Asian neighborhood. I don't know. And I had just seen a 60 Minutes report about no-go zones, as some people call them, and other people say they don't exist. Well, they're in the 60 Minutes report. There are Muslim men who are screaming at a woman wearing a miniskirt, and she's saying, "This is England."
There's recent videos this year that you can't tell what country it is. It looks like certain areas of England are in the middle of the Middle East that, you know, could be or in a war. I mean, it looks like a war zone.
To your point about this, so but not in that neighborhood. It's not. And I remember we were walking along, and before we ever got to the restaurant, I remember vividly one of the Israeli bodyguards saying to me the exact words, "We got to get up out of here right now." They just felt unsafe here.
I suspect things are worse in London today. Earlier this month, the US State Department stated El Salvador was now safer than the UK and several other European countries. On a lighter note, we discussed the #1 comedy show in America, Kill Tony.
Coming to you live from Madison Square Garden. Give it up for Tony Hinchcliffe!
The reason I bring it up is he's got this show, and it's the biggest comedy show in America. I think it might even be in the world in terms of views. Why it's so interesting to me is that it's the inversion of virtue signaling. It's vice signaling.
Correct. That's so brilliant.
So
yes,
they
vice signaling. You got to copyright that. That's so exactly on the money.
We've had all this political correctness killing comedy, killing the arts for a long time, and it seems to me that it's burst out in a show like this. I actually think it's an old show. He's doing it for over 10 years, and I think it's originally from Los Angeles. But they make fun. They have the comics that go up to try and do their minute and try and impress the world and make it. So a lot of them are literally disabled. And whoever it is,
really,
they will humiliate them. If it's a disabled person, they'll humiliate them for being disabled.
Everyone's so thirsty for the end of political correctness and people being able to defend or to offend people and make fun of people and be able to laugh at things. Like everything isn't about world peace.
really.
But it's
Come on.
equal opportunities kind of humiliation. And whoever it is, they go up there. But knowing that this exists, does that give you hope for the future of, like, is that a good thing, you think, that
What gives me hope is that they never got rid of me. Fuck Kill Tony. I don't know what the fuck he's doing. It sounds like he's pandering to one side. I'm doing something much more difficult, which is not pandering to either side.
I'm sure Tony Hinchcliffe will be thrilled to hear what Bill said. Bill explained how his show and others in the 90s were a direct response to the first wave of political correctness in the 80s.
See, I'm half Jewish as well, and we have one Jew. Wherever you are in the world, there's always one.
But the elephant in the room throughout the conversation was Bill's recent meeting with President Trump. He was waiting to put out his monologue on Saturday, which is why he held back from discussing it. But he did reveal this.
There was a moment where he said to me, a lot of people told me that they liked that we're having this dinner, but not all. And I said to him, same. A lot of people told me they really liked I'm doing this, but not all. And we kind of agreed that the people who don't even want us to talk, we don't like you.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk. I know that bothers some people, and I don't think those people are like being practical, and I don't think it's good for your psychic health.
And this is why I like Bill.
It's all the raging anger with no substance behind it.
Unlike so many progressives, Bill has not become anti-pluralist. He is a true liberal, perhaps even libertarian, in the sense that he will talk to anyone. Trump, Bannon, Gavin Newsom, even an unemployed banjo-playing limey like me. Bill seems to be a bloke that pisses off liberals and conservatives, and to me, that is a good sign. It is the sign of a man who says what he believes to be true, not what he believes will get him ahead. Indeed, speaking his mind has cost him at several times in the short run. But in the long run, he has kept his integrity. Even when I disagree with Bill, I still listen to him because his actions suggest that he is not someone partisan. His desire to speak to all sides might be an example to Brits and Americans alike.
What do you think, guys? Can we learn from people we disagree with? Can we get along with them? Can we try to die down the rhetoric and have constructive conversations? What do you think?